Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2, titled The Mines of Mandalore, just aired. We're going to give our immediate feedback, and we're also going to talk about a few little Easter eggs that were found throughout the episode right now on the Sundowners Club. Welcome, I'm your host, Sean, co-host Sterling. So, Sterling, The Mandalorian Season 3 kicked off. You weren't here last week when we did the first episode. You were away in parts unknown. So we'll get into your thoughts of the first episode. But now the second episode is aired, The Mines of Mandalore, which, my first thought, because I got a chance to see both episodes as one, was I don't know why they didn't release both of them at the same time, because I think it helps to see the second episode as part of one larger episode, right? The first two. I know why they did it, because there's only 8 episodes in the season, but
that seems to be the case with the third one, the next one.
Yes, it's interwoven. So, but give me your initial thoughts, since you weren't here to kind of cover the first episode. Were you a little let down with episode 1 going into episode 2? Were you feeling excited about it? What were your thoughts on episode 1 before we delve into the Mines of Mandalore?
I enjoyed episode 1. I like the look of the show. I think they did a good job, but just obviously it's all green screen and CGI. But I think
they use the volume.
Yeah, but it looks good though. I think for the most part. I actually enjoyed the first episode. I thought it was fun. It felt like Star Wars, kind of in
the fun Star Wars,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
kind of like from the prequel era, in my opinion. I actually enjoyed that. So with the second episode, I don't know. I kind of feel like what's his real name?
Din Djarin.
Din Djar. I just call him Mando.
Din Djarin.
Yeah, I just kind of felt like he was just a useless idiot. It's just like, save me, Bo, save me, please.
When everybody leaves their comments, just remember that Sterling called Din a useful idiot, not me. So when you leave your comments, highlight Sterling.
Yeah,
a useful idiot. That's okay. So we're going to get into some of the things you're talking about the back half of the episode, right?
I mean, you get captured, and then you fall in the water and get stuck. I mean, you got saved twice in one episode. I mean, and you saw him struggle to fight those what do you call them?
Alamites.
I mean, he just looked like a caveman swinging that sword. He looked like a
hopefully they're going to explain that, because that has not happened with any other lightsabers in previous Star Wars content that I know of. I mean,
like, it's heavy for him.
Han used a lightsaber to, open up a tauntaun. So
Bo wields it like a master.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now that makes sense, and we'll get into that. Bo-Katan's history with the darksaber, but in previous Star Wars content, any other lightsaber that's been picked up by someone that's not a Jedi,
it's not heavy. I mean, you get that they're kind of scared of, they might cut their arm off or something, but I don't understand that.
So when we start, and we're going to do two things. We're going to kind of cover the major beats of the episode, what we thought about episode 2, and then a few Easter eggs for people that maybe are not on other YouTube channels or don't read online, or maybe watched it but missed some of the things. We like to highlight the things that maybe you missed or that tie into the larger lore of Star Wars, and we'll do that as we get started here. At the beginning of the episode, we have Din Djarin and Grogu, and they're going to back to Tatooine, that we seem to go to every single season of every show, every movie. And I have a little bit of a gripe about that, but they're going to Tatooine to Peli Motto to get a part, supposedly, for IG-11, so that he can take IG-11 to make sure the surface of Mandalore is safe. I don't know where IG-11 is going to fit into his Naboo starfighter, but that's a whole other issue. But so they show up, and we're back on Tatooine, and the first thing we see is the droid that we saw in New Hope. And what's cool about that, I don't think that in and of itself is an Easter egg, but what is cool about R5 is you see the little the battle scars on the top of the droids where the motivators burst when they switched out for R2-D2 in A New Hope. So you still see the remnants of that both on top of the droid, and we'll show an image of that, and on the side of the droid where Luke tells Uncle Owen that the R2 unit has a bad motivator. But
I
so I
actually
thought
didn't notice that.
that was pretty cool. So we obviously knew who the droid was,
Yeah.
but so I thought that was cool. And then amongst I thought they were going to do it right. One of the pet peeves I've had on other series and on this series as well is the original Star Wars trilogy. When you had aliens, they spoke alien languages and you had subtitles, and you get used to that. You get conditioned that when they're speaking Huddies or any other the Rhodians, you see the alien speak, and then if the character that's speaking to them, like Han Solo or whoever, they may speak in English, but
Well, in the second episode, they had that alien speaking the foreign language. There was no subtitles.
right, and
So-
she's speaking English to him, and so I thought, okay, they're doing this right now. Then she turns around and starts speaking Jawese, or to.
Yeah, it's not very
like-
consistent.
I'm like, what is going on? But okay,
The character
little-
actually gets on my nerves.
yeah, mine too. But it's small doses, little pet peeve, and
Right.
I knew we weren't going to be here very long on Tatooine. So, so then two other little Easter eggs. He's looking for a memory part for the IG-11, and she says no. Instead of saying no dice, she says no chance cube. And for those that would recognize potentially a chance cube, what is she talking about? And the chance cube is what we had Qui-Gon Jinn in the Phantom Menace gambling against Watto to win Anakin's freedom, and he rolls the red and blue chance cube, and Qui-Gon Jinn uses the Force to turn it in his favor to get Anakin freed. So, a little throwback to the Phantom Menace and the chance cube. And then she mentions, you picked a time to come here. It's Boonta Eve, and again, tying back to the Phantom Menace, as we see when they first show up in Tatooine, you see the pod racers racing around.
Yeah, that was cool.
They're celebrating Boonta Eve, and that's a throwback to the Phantom Menace as well, because Anakin's pod race was the races to celebrate Boonta Eve, which is the Hutts, Boonta the Hutt that took over. And she also mentions to Din Djarin that the Hutts are back. So that's something that didn't happen in the Book of Boba Fett. I know that was one of your favorite series. But so I'm assuming that'll be addressed for maybe season 2 of Boba Fett. But the Hutts seem to be back on Tatooine, and she references that. So a few little Easter egg nuggets there, and then she convinces Din to take R5, and she gives him an oil bath, which C-3PO got, from Luke. And then, she builds the section of the ship, the Naboo starfighter, to be able to put R5, and then they're off to Mandalore. And so, your initial thoughts of Tatooine, were you okay with those? To me, the weakest part of the episode was the first 7 minutes. I thought, I'm not really excited to go to Tatooine again. I'm not really excited about Pelimata, but I wasn't hating it, but I just was like, okay, not too excited here until they take off and you see the fireworks celebrating Boonta Eve, and they go to Mandalore. And then I thought the episode gets good. So your thoughts on the first 7 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, it was just typical.
Nothing groundbreaking. Yeah.
No. And I didn't think that. I mean, the last part of the episode the rest of it was entertaining. I didn't love it.
Oh, we missed one thing. Grogu jumps out of the Naboo starfighter and does a Yoda flip into Peli's arms.
Which is funny because he's like struggling to walk sometimes, and then all of a sudden, boom. Well, I guess that's kind of how Yoda is, though, so that makes sense.
Yeah, he kind of wobbles and he's used the Force. So we know that Luke has at least trained him to do the Yoda flip. So that was kind of cool. But so they show up on Mandalore, which was really cool because we've always heard about Mandalore, and we've seen from the animated series, the Clone Wars, and in comics, how Mandalore was pre the destruction. And but we see now as he comes through the clouds.
I actually thought that scene looked pretty good.
Yeah, it was really cool. And you see kind of the greenish glass on the planet in different sections. And then he sends poor R5, calls him a baby, and sends R5 off to test the air quality and atmosphere, and R5 disappears. And so that gets into where you're talking about. So we see Din tells Grogu, and before he leaves, he has been showing Grogu how to navigate, which is going to play a part into this episode. he's been working with Grogu on
He picked up on it like that. I mean,
yeah. Well, and we'll get into that. You know, he pointed, but he's basically telling them, and it did make sense because the planets and the moons around Mandalore, Concordia and Calavali, you know, they're all very close, so you can get from one place to the next pretty quickly if you have a starfighter. They're not in farther reaches of the galaxy, so he laid that out to where it would be like, okay, this would make sense for later if someone needs to get somewhere quick.
yeah.
And he's showing them the navigation, and we also have Pelly has also talked about R5 being able to help with navigation too. So they set that up, I thought, okay. And then he goes into the cave, and we see a little bit of the Ray Harryhausen Alamites that attack Den. And like you said, he struggled with the Darksaber, but pretty good fight as he throws them down towards the city center of Sundari. It reminded me, those creatures reminded me of Ray Harryhausen, the Voyage of Sinbad, and some of those older movies where they kind of had the claymation, the Clash of the Titans type stuff.
What's
Those
that
creatures,
movie with the time machine?
the Guy Pearce,
Yeah, there's
the
monsters in that.
the Time Machine, right? Very similar to those.
Yeah,
That's a good
it
call
reminded,
out.
it reminded me of that, but
That's actually one of the better Time Machine movies. But
I don't know. I thought he's had that thing for a while now. I think he learned to wield it.
well,
a
I don't
little
know if they're
better.
going to get into that, like how heavy it is. Like he's not meant to wield it, because he did the same thing when he fought Moff Gideon,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
But-
So he gets in and he takes them out, and then he walks right into what looks like a spider trap, but it's this character that is like a cyborg,
reminded me of General Grievous a little bit.
a little bit of Grievous. But you know what it reminded me of is there was a movie that came out, and people can look up online. We'll put an image up of it so you could see that they had to be influenced by this. There's a movie in 1982 called The Dark Crystal, and they had these characters that were like spiderish looking called Garthams. And it looked just like that, except for it was mechanical. This one was mechanical with a creature inside a hatch. And so it takes Den and captures him, and looks like it didn't look like he was just drawing blood. It looked like he was drawing like fluid from his back or something, because when he poked him, I don't know, he was already hurt, but
Yeah,
um,
it's pretty gross. For
yeah,
a
it was
Star
kind of this kind of had a creature. Again, I've referenced Ray Harryhausen. I liked the creature aspect of this. Star Wars has always had that, as a part of its lore and storytelling is the creature effects. And
And you got to be able to introduce new characters, so even though you've never seen it, it's not established. I think it'd be kind of cool if, because it did at first remind me of General Grievous. And,
right,
like that's this character that you've seen
Yeah.
that was a big character, and you've never seen anything like him. Why not say like that's maybe the same race or something? Try to tie that
because you
in.
knew
but-
there was a body, some
Right,
sort
but
of
they-
body inside the.
But they didn't do that. It
Cyborg.
just seemed like an original character they created for the show. But
Yeah, it's it was pretty cool. I like that scene. I thought it had a
but he got captured like an idiot.
right,
Just
right.
Don't. Oh, there you go.
Again,
So-
anybody leaving comments, Sterling called Din Djarin an idiot.
Yes.
Um,
No.
So
Yeah.
he's captured, and Grogu is like, I'm gonna go save him, and he's like,
Yeah.
go to Bo-Katan. So he's totally giving up
Save
on.
me, Bo. Save me.
Yeah, he doesn't have any faith Grogu's gonna save him at this point. And then Grogu gets the heck out of there, man. He's back in his pod, and he's like,
Yeah.
he takes a couple of the creatures out and gets in the Naboo Starfighter, which now we know why he's been shown all these things for navigation, because now he points to where Bo-Katan is at Calavali. It says, and R5 sets the coordinates, and that's where they go. And it was kind of weird. We get to Calavali, and so I guess Bo-Katan is like, does she sleep on the throne? Is she
Just
not-
hangs out there,
just
sits
chilling?
there all day long.
She's got some sort of fridge beside it where she gets her drinks.
And they go there and back, and there's Mando just chilling in the cage. He's still stuck where he was at.
And I think she's about to like either just toss Mando or kill him. She's like, okay, we're gonna send him away once and for all. Then she goes out and sees Grogu, and she's like, where did he go? Where's he at? And so they take him. So she gets in her ship, and she actually has a real ship where people can sleep and there's space. So her she has like a was like a Comric class starfighter, and I think that she had that during the Clone Wars because she was part of Death Watch. But so she brings her starfighter, and it's pretty cool as you see her starfighter going into the atmosphere onto Mandalore. And I know there's some exposition. She's talking to Grogu about what happened to the planet a little bit, and it's for some people that know the backstory or that if Mando has been telling Grogu some of the stuff about Mandalore, so it seems could be a little bit redundant. But I think what it's doing is it's building a relationship for the first time, really, between Bo-Katan and Grogu, because in last season it was all about they had to rescue Grogu, but she didn't know Grogu. So I think it's she's bonding. So and I think it's going to serve a purpose for the later part of the season. But she shows up and this is her home world, so she looks around, sees in the ceiling. She kills the Alamites and
She knows what they are instantly.
she knows how to wield the Darksaber when she gets to where this droid, this cyborg is. She takes it out, and she's way more adept at fighting than Din Djarin. But that makes sense because she's been part of wars and she's done this for. I mean, people have to remember Bo-Katan's character has to be at least 50. If you're just retracing the steps going back to the Clone Wars, we're 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Do they age slower, or what's the?
I don't think so, but she's was in her late teens, early 20s.
So
when all
she
that
just
happened.
looks great for 50.
Of course.
Okay.
She's a Mandalore. So, but
Yeah.
she's been doing this for a long time, whereas Din is not. So it would make sense that she could rescue him. And this is her home planet. She knows the species. She knows her way around.
But he's been a bounty hunter his entire life.
But he was freezing people right before Mandalorian started. So
I don't know. I don't
So-
buy it. I think I think it's just he's been Disney-fied. And
So-
he's just a.
So she
Oh,
frees
yes.
him, and now he's like, I'm not leaving. I'm going into the springs, right? So he's going into the waters and I think it's a cool scene of him talking about why the creed is important to unify the Mandalore, and you start to see her starting to buy into, and this is where I felt for the first time that what we're seeing here is the Princess in the Night, Arthurian tale a little bit, right? With Bo-Katan, she comes from royalty. You're going to see about her past misdeeds and that she's lost faith. And you have a guy in Mando who is the knight. He's the guy that is restoring her faith. You start to see that happening, and when you hear the music playing when he steps into the water, and then he's like a kid that stepped into the deep end where the pool slopes. He goes down, and you think, is it because of his armor? And then you realize maybe not. So she jumps in.
Save me, Bo. Save me.
Yeah, she jumps in. She's the lifeguard from Baywatch, and she saves him. And as she does that, we see what we've not seen in any Star Wars movies or series. We finally see, as they're rising up out of the water, a huge eye looking at her, and she sees it. And you see the tusk as it floats away, the mythosaur. And so that's a game changer. So as the episode ends, and she's in shock, right? Because this has been a myth. The whole idea of Mandalore, when the Mandalorians took over the planet and they created, the creed and the houses, and they did so by defeating and in some instances riding these mythosaurs. And the mythosaur is more important than the Darksaber. So now that we have a mythosaur, is she going to conquer? Is she going to ride the mythosaur? And the mythosaur trumps the Darksaber. So I think they're giving an out there for her to be able to lead the people and unify them. And so I think also you have Din, who is maybe learning that not everything that the armor has been saying is true, and not everything that Bo has been saying is true. That the commonalities are what's going to bind them, right? And so they're setting the stage up for that. I give it an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it for the lore and for all the things I've watched before. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I'm an easy sell, but I enjoyed it. You didn't like it as much as I did, right?
I give it a 6.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, again, I as I watched it, I thought, there's going to be people that
It's not awful.
think differently. But the key is going to be they've got 6 more episodes.
Yeah.
We know that the
I'm
pirates.
not giving up on it.
The pirates are making their way to Navarro. There's going to be a battle in Navarro. We've seen that from the clips, and so we know that's going to happen. And I do like the fact that they got to Mandalore in episode 2. They got this thing out of the way so that they can play with the larger story. And I want to see with Moff Gideon and some other characters, I want to see a big bad show up that shocks everybody, whether that's a clone Jedi or something. I want to see something that just wows you, where they're going to need more help than just the Mandalorians.
Oh.
And so that's what I'm looking forward to. But wanted to talk about a few things that maybe you missed in the episode that were Easter eggs and the tie-ins to former movies in the larger lore of Star Wars. We also want to give our thoughts on the first 2 episodes. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember, we've been talking about doing a giveaway, and we're going to be giving away 5 of these. So the Funko Pop exclusive Star Wars Mandalorians from GameStop. So make sure that you hit subscribe and leave a comment. That'll help your chances of winning. And we're going to draw 5 names to win this next week. And remember, leave a comment below, hit that like button, and most importantly, hit subscribe so that we can grow our channel. So our next topic is in the realm of 007, the Bond franchise. So we know that Daniel Craig has finished his run as 007 in the last James Bond movie. And the Broccolis, who are behind the IP for 007, have said that they really haven't started looking at casting yet, which I don't believe that for one second. So there's been some things that have come out, and we're gonna tie these things together for what we think is going to happen with 007. And the first one is from Taron Egerton. So Taron has been linked to potentially playing James Bond for a couple of years now. And I know you and I have spoken about it, and the thought was that he would be a leading candidate. But Taron came out in the last few days and made an interesting statement, and I think it's very, very direct. He's putting it out there that he thinks that that they have their guy, and it's not him. And so while he's a fan of 007, he will not be playing 007, and he hasn't spoken to the Broccolis. So that's the first part of this story. The second part of the story is we've got Henry Cavill, our guy Henry Cavill. That I'm a big fan of Henry Cavill. We're looking forward to. I know you are, his Warhammer series, Warhammer 40K, that's coming out on Amazon. So Henry we got 2 things that are going to tie into 007. The first is he's got an Apple TV Plus movie coming out called Argyle, and where it's a spy thriller. And I don't see that he would do Argyle and then turn around and they would cast him as Bond, playing a spy and then going and playing Bond. I think there's a little conflict there. And then I feel even stronger about that now that there has been a rumor out, according to Giant Freaking Robot, that online that Henry Cavill is up for the role of the villain in the new James Bond movie. So our thoughts are, based on what Taron Egerton's saying, he thinks they've got their Bond, and it's not him. So there's people on the inside that maybe are hearing that, yeah, they have who they want, and they're zeroing in on them. And now you attach that to the fact that there's rumors Henry Cavill is looking at playing the villain, which I think is fantastic because he killed it in Mission Impossible when he popped the fist before he fought Cruise. I'm a big fan of Henry Cavill, so I'm down for him playing the villain. And you have a thought, like we've heard a lot of people that could be playing Bond. And keep in mind, the Broccolis have always said they want someone in their 30s because you're going to have to play this role for maybe 5 movies on average.
It's going to be over a decade.
Over a decade. So they want someone in their 30s, someone old enough to have been grizzled and been through the wars, so to speak, is 007, but also young enough to do at least 5 films over a decade or longer.
So you could be in your 50s by the time it's over.
That's right. So you have a thought that I think you're dead on with who it's going to be. So tell me who you think, your prediction, who you think is going to play Bond.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've read it, so I'm honestly not a huge fan of it, but I keep hearing Aaron Tyler Johnson.
Yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson. I'm not a huge fan of that. That's what I've heard. Well, so, if you look at some of the other candidates, there's been,
is he English?
Yeah. And you've got Richard Madden. I think he's got other stuff. Richard Madden, played Rob Stark. I don't see Richard Madden playing that unless they were going the way of a Roger Moore type. I think you've got there's other people out there. I mean, look, you could Idris Elba, but then I don't know how.
So he's almost 50.
Yeah, Idris Elba is older. I mean, they've said they don't want anybody over a certain age. And then you've got Taron is now out. You've got a couple other actors in the UK that I think could do the job, but it really just depends on what type of Bond do they want. Because Aaron Taylor Johnson fits a certain type of Bond, unless you're going for, I think if you're going for a Sean Connery type, I don't think you go with Aaron Taylor Johnson. So it just depends on where they want to take Bond. But I like the pick. I think you have a better chance than not of being right that it is Aaron Taylor Johnson.
I thought Cavill was a better pick for Bond, but
I've also heard
he's got a lot of stuff going
I
on.
hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I've also heard Sam Heughan, that plays in Outlander, plays Jamie in Outlander. I think Sam could do it, but I think he may be around 40, 42 as well. So I'm not really sure, but we're going to stick with our pick of Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think that's a good prediction, and we're going to stick with that. And so if we see a 007 announcement that has Aaron Taylor Johnson playing 007 and has Henry Cavill as the villain, I'll go see that movie. I'm all in on that. I'm a Bond fan, so I think they'd have to do a lot to dissuade me from going to see the movie. So excited to see when they actually announce who's going to be playing those roles, and we'll be here to cover it. So let's go to our next topic. So, a subject that we cover, the content that we cover consistently around all things George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Jon Snow, and Ryan Condal, who is the showrunner for House of the Dragon, came out yesterday and said that in season 2 of House of the Dragon, which they just started filming, there's going to be 5 new dragons. And in time with that, they also had an interview with George R.R. Martin where he talked about one of the things he thought was wrong with the original Game of Thrones series that was fixed in House of the Dragon was that he felt like that in House of the dragons had more personality. You could tell the difference between them, like Caraxes and Vhagar. Vhagar's big and old.
I mean, that's just bigger budget and better CGI.
And they've learned. Listen, Drogon will always be my favorite dragon. So George is the creator, so I know he's looking for different colors on the dragons and then long necks and different personalities. And I do get that, and I agree with what he's saying. But until I see Balerion the Black Dread, nothing's going to trump Drogon. That's just Drogon's going to be my favorite until the end. So, so the 5 new dragons, I thought it'd be interesting without giving away spoilers, because if you want to go look up online or read the books and dig into it, we welcome you to do that. But we're not going to give away any plot points for what we think season 2 is going to get into. But I'm going to give you the names of the 5 dragons that I think are going to be showing up in season 2. And they are, number 1, Sunfire. Number 2, Moon Dancer. Number 3, Silverwing. Number 4, Tessarian. And number 5, Taraxes. And so for those that want to do some digging and look online and Google some of those dragons and maybe the individuals who will be riding them, could be a cool little thing to kind of dig into. And
who's the one that Damon was singing to in the mountain at the
Vermithor.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so I
figured they could be counting that as a new one though, just because he was only in it for
because he was in it. So I think
that's what we're talking about, dragons that have never been seen.
Right. I'm assuming Ryan Condal is saying 5 new dragons that you have not seen.
Okay.
So Vermithor would qualify as one that we've seen. We haven't seen him in battle, but a really great scene where Damon is singing old Valerian to him, and very
They
cool.
have done a good job making them look different though.
Yeah, and you once you watch the show enough, you start to you see Arax and you see Caraxes and you see Vhagar and Melees and all of them. So yeah, I think they start to, as you get to know the characters, you get to know their dragons as well. But I thought that'd be interesting to do, just to kind of mention the 5 dragons that I think are going to appear, and they just started filming House of the Dragon. We've heard already, and we reported before that this is going to be a long shoot, and it's probably going to be an even longer post-production and editing, because this next season we are going to be full bore all on Dance of the Dragons, and we're going to be seeing other areas of Westeros that we didn't see in season 1. So it'll be exciting to go back to Winterfell. We will be back in Winterfell at the very beginning of season 2, and we will also see Blood and Cheese, and we will see the idea of Son for a Son. A lot of things excited to see in season 2. We'll be here to cover it, so I just wanted to kind of cover that topic and talk about the latest from Ryan Condal, the showrunner on House of the Dragon Season 2, and we certainly look forward to that. So our third topic of the day is around the world of J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. So you and I have spoken in previous videos. We've covered that Warner Brothers, they've got several IPs that are just gold mines for them. They've got to make money, right? All these companies are struggling right now. And so instead of pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into unproven IPs that put them at risk of losing more money and people get fired, they're going to go. They're moving towards the proven entities, right? And what's funny, what you were laughing about, is David Zaslav has an earnings call, and he says, we're going to do new Lord of the Rings movies, and we don't have the streaming, the shows, the one-offs, right? We've got the control to do the actual Lord of the Rings movies, which was an absolute shot at.
So Embracer Group actually owns them. They bought the entire catalog, and they struck a deal with Embracer Group to basically do movies off whatever they want. Well, Amazon, I think, did a certain era, and
they can't go outside that, right?
They can't go outside of that. So
for Rings of Power,
which, I mean, we never really talked about that show. I think one of the things we wanted to do was talk about shows that we had general interest in, and I think we both gave it a shot and thought it was awful. So that's why we didn't cover it.
That's why we didn't cover it.
And we didn't want to hate watch it, which there are people that do that, and, that's great. But we didn't want to do that. So we never talked about it. But I think it'd be great if it'd be funny if they covered that same era that Rings of Power is covering, except they just actually stayed to the source material. And see,
that would be an ultimate
how much
jab at Amazon,
and watch how much better it does. Because
that would be,
which is funny because they hyped it up like that show was doing really well, and if you looked at the Nielsen's ratings, it didn't do well.
No.
It didn't. It wasn't even their top show. I think The Boys and Reacher were both ahead of it on Amazon. So that's I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential for that series if they do it right, and hopefully they stay true to the source material. And
so I think the key is they got to get Peter Jackson. I don't think he has to direct the films, but they have to get Peter Jackson involved, because if you get Peter Jackson, it's not a guarantee that it's going to be a huge success, but it's a guarantee that you're going to get the fans to watch it, because Peter Jackson. I know not everybody loved the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but that original trilogy that he did was wildly successful.
I thought it was amazing.
And if you come out and you say Peter Jackson is directing the first movie, or he's executive producing and he gets to pick the directors, and Philippa is involved as well, the original creative team around the Lord of the Rings trilogy, at that point, I don't care where they go. I think Peter will know the place to play, the pocket for the story. Do we want to go 6,000 plus years before the events of Lord of the Rings and do the Children of Hurin? Do we want to go to the future and maybe show Aragorn and what happened after? I think, because I think that he can go a couple of different ways, but depending upon which direction he goes, there's a tighter box to play in, right? So Peter Jackson knows that as well as anybody. And so I think that, and David Zaslav said on the earnings call, that he's in talks with Peter Jackson. So he knows that is a huge win to get Peter Jackson on board for this new series of movies. And so I'm excited about it. If they get Peter Jackson involved in the project, then I think this thing's going to be successful. It'd be hard for it not to be.
That is a huge slap in the face to Amazon, though, isn't it?
And that's what we want.
And it would be even bigger if they cover the same era, like the exact same.
Competition breeds excellence.
No.
So if they're competing, then I think it makes everybody better, right? The cream rises to the top. And so I'm excited about it. We wanted to talk about it, the potential of Peter Jackson joining the Lord of the Rings new franchise that's going to be made by Warner Brothers, and David Zaslav running the show. And then where will they go? Will they go prior to Lord of the Rings with something like the Children of Hurin, or will they go to post Lord of the Rings with the world of Aragorn and others? And so we'll see. But wanted to cover that. So our fourth topic, which was probably the most humorous topic of the day, is Variety reported in a barn burner news announcement that Kevin Feige and Patty Jenkins, their Star Wars projects are shelved. So they're dead in the water at Lucasfilm, which is news to no one, as we've been talking about the fact that since Bob Iger stepped in and Disney needs to cut over $5 billion in costs, and they're bleeding more than $1 billion in losses in Disney content every quarter, which is the equivalent of the last 2 quarters of sinking in one of their cruise ships, by the way. So if you take 1.5 billion and 1 billion in losses in the last 2 quarters, that's a Disney cruise line. And so, the idea that Kevin Feige and Patty Jenkins were going to be doing these Star Wars movies was ludicrous. So I don't know. Variety, I guess, was stating the obvious to everybody who already knew it. But I thought that was funny that they actually had a report in Variety about it. But then they mentioned that Taika Waititi is actually still working on a Star Wars project where he's going to be one of the characters in it or starring in it. I don't think that's happening either.
Oh.
I think he did a little. Listen, I like Taika. I think he did some good stuff on The Mandalorian. I like Jojo Rabbit. Thor: Love and Thunder was awful. I didn't like it. I think he's a good filmmaker. But do you want to bet the farm at this point when you have an IP that has been struggling like Lucasfilm and Star Wars with Disney? I don't think you can take a chance.
And Marvel's has been on a huge decline.
Yeah, I think at this point,
what was
Marvel
that? Ant-Man was
Lucasfilm,
what? It was number 1 for the opening week, and then instantly dropped to 2.
almost 70% in week 2 and 61% in the third week.
Lost to Cocaine Bear,
and it might cross $500 million, which is half of what Doctor Strange did.
Wow.
And when you look at the budget and the reshoots and the marketing dollars, it's going to potentially lose over $100 million plus.
We saw this coming. We said this.
Of course we did.
6 months ago.
Yeah, it's you can see it. It doesn't take too much research to know when something's going to tank. But yeah, so Taika Waititi, I don't think his project's happening either. I'd be surprised. So that just leaves what's been floated out there. Damon Lindelof. I'll believe that when I see it. I think that they have to back up on these film projects. Doesn't matter if they announce them. At the end of the day, I think what needs to happen is we need to look at what's going to happen this summer with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and see how much money that makes or loses. And because that one's over $350 million in budget, it's been overblown. And then what happens with Kathy Kennedy, because there's too much uncertainty for them to be greenlighting, another $250 million plus movie project. Just it's too risky. And so I think they've got some good stuff going on right now with The Bad Batch and with Mandalorian. Stick to that over the next month or two, and let's just see as we get to the summer where things fall with Indiana Jones, and then you see the changes and go from there. That would be my guess. But wanted to talk about that. I thought that was really funny that Variety reported that. It was like putting up a billboard that says cigarettes kill you. It's Captain Obvious. But so our final topic of the day is a movie that I really liked, and I wasn't sure I was going to like it. And they're making the sequel, and it is to The Batman. So The Batman Part 2, starring Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, a.k.a. Batman, and Matt Reeves is the director from the first movie, is back to direct, and they start filming on November the 23rd. So a couple things about this. Now that you have the new DC universe that's being created, and James Gunn is creating a sub-universe where the Joker will play, and then this new Batman movie, which is called Elseworlds.
Well, from my understanding, you have the main universe, which is with that Superman and the new Batman movie.
The Bold and the Brave.
And then everything else is Elseworld, right?
Right. There'll be a new Batman for the Bold and the Brave.
Such a dumb
concept. Where they bring in Robin, a.k.a. Damian.
Yeah.
And so you don't like the idea of the Elseworlds and different Batmans, right?
No, I think you have, never have we had this before where you've got, 2 Batmans that are relevant at the same time. And to me, because we've gone on this multiverse thing, everybody's doing that now. I guess that's accepted, and they think people are going to think that's normal. The general public is just going to be confused by that. And
it's really strange.
And I understand the the Pattinson Batman movie was released before Zaslav took over, and it did really well. So the sequel was probably greenlit before he even took over, and they're not going to just scrap that when the first one was successful.
And The Flash was already filmed, and then you had Aquaman 2.
Yeah, and they're going to use the Flash, which I think we've discussed this before. They're going to use the Flash to reboot the entire thing, which I knew they would. That makes sense because it's dealing with time travel and all that stuff. So that's the entire purpose of that movie, is to reboot the entire DC universe. But I think it's confusing when you have, two Batmans and multiple Jokers, and I don't understand it. And you've got because you've got the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, which is another universe.
Which, by the way, the first Joker movie, and I was shocked by this. I enjoyed the movie. It definitely wasn't for everybody, but for historical perspective, it is the only rated R movie in history to make $1 billion.
Really?
Which is crazy because if you were guessing,
and the budget wasn't that high, so they made a lot of profit on that. Like it
Todd Phillips, man, he he did The Hangover. Very creative guy, and Joaquin. That was a different movie.
But that's what they've always done wrong, is they've never built upon what they've created.
Right, they're one-offs, and then they
like
reset.
when you think about the MCU was building back in 2008 with Iron Man, right? And you had the Christian Bale, the Nolan Batman movies, which were great. They should have been building that out from there, but they didn't. They started out all over again, rebooted it, acted like those movies never took place.
And they let Nolan walk after the third movie.
And now you've got this Joker movie, which was huge. You're doing nothing with that other than just another standalone movie. You've got the Pattinson Batman movie, which has nothing to do with the mainstream universe. And I'm not saying that, their main DC universe may be great. I'm going to give it a chance, but at the same time, it's just you got too much going on at the same time, and I think it's just going to confuse the general audience.
Well, and we have a Penguin. We have
superhero fatigue.
A Colin Farrell Penguin series that's filming right now.
Yeah, on HBO Max.
HBO Max, yeah. So that he comes from the first Batman movie. So,
but how do you think that's going to do a show about a penguin?
I don't know.
And on a alternate universe Batman movie that ultimately means nothing in the greater scheme of things because it has nothing to do. I don't know. It's just too much, and I think it's.
And see, the other thing that they probably have to be careful of is, especially if they're going to have a new Batman, the Bold and the Brave, is within DC, is for this Elseworlds Batman Part 2 with Robert Pattinson. Who's the villain? No. Because they're not going to want to put a villain.
You want to do another Joker and have Joaquin Phoenix's Joker and then that Joker.
Yeah, I mean, like you could really confuse
and then you're going to have a Joker in the main DC universe.
So I think that they have to be very, very careful. Like, what villain do they put in there? Because I don't want to see Harvey Two-Face, which would be great in this gritty Robert Pattinson Nirvana-esque Batman world, where he's in the courtroom and Sal Maroni throws the acid on his face and he becomes corrupted and goes insane. I would like to see that, but I don't want to see that if they're going to have Harvey Two-Face, another actor, playing in the regular DC. Yeah. So they've got some big decisions to make around that. But I thought it was noteworthy that they announced that Part 2 starts filming November 23rd. I mean, I'll be interested in seeing it. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed Robert Pattinson playing it.
I liked it too for what it was.
But you're right. They don't build from it. So
so what's the point?
Because the idea is to get fans to go see movie after movie, and that's what happened with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is
nobody cared about Ant-Man or Miss Marvel. Nobody knew who those characters were, but you cared about it because it felt like it was a larger part of his story. And they can get away with this with characters like Batman because Batman's huge,
right?
But I mean, and so is Superman. But I don't know.
They've got their work cut out for him. I like James Gunn. I'm interested to see what he does with the gods and monsters kind of side of the DC universe and creating the all the different characters he's going to create. And so I'm interested to see that, but it is not an easy task, and it's been tough sledding so far just in the public realm. My thought would be, maybe stay off social media and don't engage so much every time somebody has a thought or.
Well, it doesn't bug me.
You have to believe in what you're doing to build this world out.
It doesn't bug me that he debunks stuff, though. I like that. If somebody says, so-and-so is going to be cast, he's like, no, they're not. I mean, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's two sides to it, I guess. For me, I'm excited to see Batman Part 2. I'm excited to see who the villain's going to be. But I'm ready to hear, give me the game plan for Superman, the new Superman. Give me the game plan for the Bold and the Brave, and let's go from there. But thought it was interesting, wanted to cover it. Remember, if you like what you heard today, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think, and hit that like button. And most importantly, hit subscribe so that we can grow our channel. And TCB.